Was to overturn the Don't Ask, Don't Tell military policy that prohibits gays from serving openly in the military. But he's made no specific move to do that since taking office. Well, the president's top military advisor says the Pentagon has enough challenges without rushing to overturn the policy.
The president has made his strategic intent very clear, that it's his intent at some point in time to ask Congress to change this law. I think it's important to also know that this is the law, this isn't a policy.
Joining me now is Jon Soltz, who is co-founder and chairman of VoteVets.org, a progressive pro-military organization. He also served in both the Iraq War and Kosovo with the U.S. Army. Jon, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Nora.
And happy Memorial Day to you and to all the men and women that serve. Let me ask you about this controversial policy. We just heard Admiral Mullen. He says he's working on an assessment of what, if any, impact overturning Don't Ask, Don't Tell would have for the military and its culture. Is that enough?
Well, I mean, obviously he's buying some time here. He doesn't want to get his suit wet, as we'd say. But in reality, the arguments coming out that this is going to be hard to implement, those are ridiculous arguments. And the reason is that we have very strict guidelines inside the military right now in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So if you're an officer and you're in a heterosexual relationship with an enlisted member, someone's going to get kicked out of the military for that. It's going to be the officer, and they're going to get reprimanded. So we have very strict guidance on heterosexual contact in regards to if you're an officer enlisted or public displays of affection. And essentially all the military has to do is transfer those same rules to homosexual conduct. And that's essentially all they have to do now. They're going to buy some time here with, changing the military law and counseling the force on what the new policy is. But for the most part right now, we're seeing a process of buying some time to study, not because it's tough militarily, but because it's politically charging to take on this issue with the amount of other issues that we have in regards to the economy and the energy bill and a bunch of other issues here politically in Washington, D.C.
Right, and Jon, I think that's an important point that you just made, because there are already tough standards about dating in the military that govern standards of conduct. I do want to read from part of the article that you wrote about this, because I think it's very compelling. You write, and let me just read from it, quote, "We keep soldiers who entered the military with serious criminal records because we need as many people as possible, but that need isn't great enough for us to stop discharging good troops for being honest to their units about being gay. It makes no sense. It's insanity, and it's hurting our armed forces." You bring up in your article, Jon, the point of Steve Green, of course, who brutally murdered a family in Iraq, raped a girl, and it turns out that he had had 3 alcohol and drug-related offenses, and yet the military issued a moral waiver because they needed more people in the military. What do you think that points out?
Well, I brought it up for a big reason. Stephen Green obviously was in the news last week. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. And he was in the 101st Airborne, actually served a couple years after in the same place I did in Iraq, in Mahmudiyah, which is a very, very tough combat area in Iraq. And he killed his family. And then there was repercussions on the military there. Those 2 other soldiers then about 6 months later got taken as prisoners. So what was worse for the unit? That or the lieutenant colonel that Service League Defense Network's defending, that Rachel Maddow had on this week, who was an aviator who's a lieutenant colonel who's fought in the Air Force for 18 years and has an air medal? Who's worse for unit morale? Who's worse? Who's going to hurt? The argument always is it hurts readiness. It's going to hurt retention. That's a bunch of crap. Okay, when we've lowered our standards now, the Army since no longer allowed certain felons into the military, but when we were dying for the amount to get more recruits into the military before the economy basically tanked, that's what we were doing. And this is something that would enhance the military, because it's going to allow the most qualified people to serve openly and to do it well. I mean, we talk about Army values, honor and integrity, and you're asking people to lie about their sexuality. That's not quite honor and integrity the way we see it, and it certainly doesn't help our force be strong and ready for our next conflicts.
All right, Jon Soltz with VoteVets.org. Jon, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.